Hey everyone, thank you for joining me. I'm a guy called Joe, and this is Bootstrapping Tools Let's Build, where we help scrappy bootstrappers just like yourself figure out how to overcome some of the hurdles that they're facing in their business or just for them to make themselves better. Now, before we dive into today's topic, make sure to check out our YouTube channel. We got lots of videos up there that talk about all sorts of low code and no code solutions out there, including Retool, Google Sheets, Google Apps Scripts, Data Studio, Airtable, as well as many others. If you don't see what you're looking for here, feel free to shoot an email over to feedback@bootstrapping.tools. We'll be happy to take a look at that application for you and possibly make a video just for you. Now, in today's video, we're going to be going over how you can grab your Airtable data and put it into a Google Sheet. And you might be thinking, what can I do in Google Sheet that I can't do in Airtable? Well, the number one thing that I would say is that Airtable, great glorified spreadsheet, well, in like the best sense, right? But it has this feature called apps, which you can do some automation with. However, you need to have a pro plan in order to access that feature on Airtable. Now, if you don't have the budget for that, one of the options that you can do is Google Apps Scripts. But in order to do that, you need to pull your data out of Airtable in order to actually apply the automation against it. So by using this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do this in a couple of minutes here. By using this technique, you're going to be able to get all the benefits of Airtable, being able to manipulate data in Airtable with their beautiful UI and grouping in all the features that they have, but still also create scripts to automate some of your workflows through Google Apps Scripts by taking that data from Airtable in real time and then applying your scripts logic to that data set in Google Sheets. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump over to our Airtable. All right, so here we have a sample Airtable base created. We're actually using one of Airtable's templates for event planning. And within here, you get different tables, one for schedule, one for speakers, one for attendees, and then another for budget. So if we were to say hypothetically, right, you wanted to get all the emails and then send them out like drip campaigns, but you don't necessarily have a good way to take that data and then put it into your email service provider like SendGrid or MailChimp or something like that. Airtable has this feature called apps that you can use. However, apps are only available in the Pro plan. Now there's also another thing called automations that you can try to do, but it doesn't necessarily do everything that you might want it to do. There's not a lot of flexibility. Well, there's a lot of flexibility, but not specifically for what we're trying to do. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is we're going to be trying to take this data from the speakers and then the attendees, right? We're going to create a list from each one of them because you'll likely want to send out different email campaigns to each. And then we're going to shove it into a spreadsheet like this one, Airtable speakers and attendees. We're going to have two different tabs, and then within our script, we're going to iterate through them so that you can actually do something with that data. So what I'm going to show you in this video is just how to pull the data and then how to get the data or write the data into this Google Sheet, and then how you can read that data again. What you do with that data afterwards, and leave it up to your imagination or your own needs. But what I'm going to show you is how to get the data from Airtable, put it into a Google Sheet, and then read off of that Google Sheet. So first things first, you're going to want to take a look at your API docs. What you can do is up on the upper right, there's a little help icon that you can do. You can click on that, and then now that's going to show your API documentation, which is all the way at the bottom over here. My head is kind of covering it. Once you click on that, that's going to open up the documentation for Airtable. And then within here, you're going to notice on the left-hand side, a couple of options here. And this is all curated to your app base on Airtable. So if you had something that was called something else, email list or something like that, you're going to see that's a email list table. So right now, ours is speakers and attendees. And we're going to click on the list records in order to get the call that we want here. So it's going to be this URL, and then our API key is shown here. You can activate your, you can show or hide your API key by clicking out this checkbox if you need it. But we're just playing with sample data, so I don't really care. But essentially, we're going to take this, and this is how we're going to grab the data from this particular table on Airtable. So going over to our script editor, and if you don't know how to access this, this is essentially within your Google Sheets. There's an option for tools up top and then a script editor. When you open that up for the very first time, it's going to be untitled and everything, and you're going to get an empty function called my function. So we're going to go ahead and rename this. We're going to create a typical one called request Airtable. All right. And then within here, we're going to determine the URL that we're going to hit. And then we're also going to determine a couple of other things like the headers, which we're going to open up into an object. Authorization is something that we're going to need because we need to be able to provide the authentication, which in this case is going to be that API key. Then we also are going to pass through some options over here, where one of those options is the headers. And then another one of those options is going to be method, which in this case, we're going to be getting information from it. Now, the cool thing about using Google Apps Scripts is that it provides you with a couple of libraries that you can do a lot of your work with. So the one that we're going to be using today is called UrlFetchApp. So you can see here, as soon as we type in URL, it kind of pops down in the drop down here. Just click on that and hit the period. There's three functions that you can call here: fetch, fetch all, and get request. The one that we're going to be using is fetch. And within fetch, you can grab the URL, and then there's also a parameter for object. Well, options actually, but it accepts an object. So options, just like we named over here, we create an object out of that. That's what we're going to pass through, and that's how we're going to say use the method get. So we're going to make a get request, and then use the headers that we identified before, where authorization is going to be our API key. So going back over to our API documentation for Airtable, I'm going to notice here that this header is the authorization bearer. So bearer authentication, and then our API key. So go ahead and just copy that. That's all we're going to need. We don't need to do anything special with it. And then the URL is going to be the URL that you see here in this curl request. Copy that. Go back to your script and go ahead and paste that in. So you'll notice that there's a couple of parameters here that we might not need, like the max records. The view is going to be important because that's how Airtable is set up, but we don't necessarily need this max record. So go ahead and highlight that and delete it out. Now within the UrlFetchApp, let's assign this to a response. So we're going to say get context text, and then we're also going to parse that. So we're going to say result equals response, JSON.parse response. So I'm going to do console log just so we can see what the result is. And this should be everything we need. So we got the URL, we got the headers where the authorization is bearer. We can actually put into here content type is application JSON. You know what? I don't think you necessarily need this, but we can put it in there anyway. And then our options are going to pull those headers, and then we're going to signal that we're using a GET request for this API request. So save that. Let's go ahead and run it and see what we get. A little bit of time, unknown error has occurred. Sometimes there's it comes with issues like this. Hold on a second. Let me refresh the page first. Okay, let's try that one more time. So you start it, and as you can see here, we're getting information back from the API. So there's records, there's an ID, there's a bunch of fields in there, and then the created time for it. So if we go back to the Airtable documentation, you can see that underneath records, each one of those has information, and then the field is what we actually want to grab. So there's the email, the name, phone number, as well as the role in the company. That's probably what we're going to pull in. The number is actually the same, but we'll pull it in anyway just so you can see what that looks like. So going back over to our script, let's actually save this as its own function because we're probably going to reuse it in the future. I'll show you why. But over here, let's return result. And what we can actually do is we can do one for the results and one for the records. No, let's actually just return the records because I don't think we care about anything else in there. We can do that. So we're going to create another function now. And we're going to say get speakers. And then this get speakers function is going to request the Airtable function that we just made. So we're going to set that to speakers, close that. And then we're going to do a console log speakers. And we can actually just go ahead and hide that console log. We don't need that anymore. So we're going to run the get speakers function now. And then what we expect is that we'll only get the records. Okay, good. So we go through here, only speakers. We don't have the created or the ID in fact. It's just that and then the fields. So what we want is each fields column. So what we'll do here now is we're going to do a simple for loop. So I equals 0, I is less than speakers dot length, I plus plus, and then within here we're going to take the info. So we're just gonna let's call this fields equals speakers I dot fields. All right, and then within those fields, what we want is we want to get the email, the name, and all of that jazz. So outside of this, let's actually go ahead and say speaker info, and we'll set this to an open array. And then speaker info, we're just going to shove into it. So we're going to do a dot push, and then we're going to do open brackets to set an array here. I'm going to say fields dot, and then if we look back at the Airtable documentation, we have email. Remember, Airtable is very specific with this capitalization, so make sure that you are using case sensitivity here. So let's actually grab the name first. So we're going to say fields.name, and then we'll copy that. We're going to do email, and then I think there were two other fields that we wanted to grab, role and company, and then also phone. So let's say role, company, oops, copy that, and then let's say phone. And then outside of this for loop, let's go ahead and console log the speaker info. Okay, so let's comment out this speaker's console log so that we don't get duplicate, and run this. We should see a nice little hash of information now. So now we have this, we blend the chat and all that. Let's also put into it the first row of the speaker info should be the header of each column. So we're going to do speaker info just right underneath when we first declare it. We're going to push into it just everything that we have down here. So we're going to say name, and make sure you put in these in quotes because they're going to be headers, phone, role, and company. All right, so once we save this and run it again, we should expect the first position in this array to be the headers, and then underneath of that, all the information that we care about for each individual person we found on that Airtable base. So now that we have get speakers, what we're going to do is we're going to create another function which is going to serve as our updater. So import speakers. So here, what we're going to do is we're going to set the spreadsheet. So SS short for spreadsheet. We're going to get the spreadsheet app that get active spreadsheet. And the reason you can use the get active spreadsheet here is because it's already attached to the spreadsheet since we opened up the script editor through the Google Sheet. Once we have that, we're going to set the sheet equal to get sheet by name. And then our sheet name over here is sheet 1, but let's call this speakers. And then let's also create another one called attendees because we're going to do that in a little bit. So speakers. And let's call this speakers sheet. So the speaker sheet dot get range. So get range, it's a pretty simple feature here. It allows for 4 parameters. The first one is the starting row. The second parameter is the starting column. And then the third one is the number of rows that you want the grid to be. And then the fourth one is the number of columns that you want it to be. So the number of the width and the height of your grid. So what we don't know yet is the actual length. So let's actually hold off on that just 1 second, because what we're going to do now is we're going to say the speaker data is equal to the get speakers. And within here, I'm going to go ahead and return speaker info. Here we're going to say var speakers equals get speakers. And then so this is going to be speakers dot length, and then the column width is actually going to be speaker 0 position dot length. All right, so once we have that range, we can also set values, and the values is going to be the speakers. So when I run this, it's going to import the speakers into this spreadsheet right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that. Oh, wait, no. That is get speakers. I don't want that. I want import speakers. It's also going to ask you to review some permissions because now we're starting to write data into it. Just going to quickly authorize that, run it. Speakers not defined. I have a typo somewhere. Here, right there. So speakers, fix that, and then run it again. Import speakers. So execution completed. We go back to our spreadsheet, and as you can see, we have the data from Airtable now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing for attendees. Now you notice here in our code, we have a request Airtable, but then all this information over here is unique specifically to the speaker. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to pass through a table value and then a view value. That way, when we request the Airtable data, we can make that, we can share the code, but look up different values for it. So within here, what we're going to do now is we're going to take where it says speakers, we're going to cut that part out. And the same thing for the view. I'm going to cut that part out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add to it the view. And then over here, we're going to say table. That way, we can just pass through the information through our function. So when we're requesting the Airtable over here for speakers, what we're going to want is speakers and then all speakers. So I'm not sure if we need the %20, which is just the URL encoding. Let's actually test this out first together. So we import speakers, truncated view table not found. Okay, so that's fine. So we do %20 over here. So it's already encoded. Actually, all speakers is not found because it is lowercase speakers, of course. So let's try that one more time. And let's do the %20 actually when we test this out. So we get data back, and let's see if we need that %20 in there. It'd be great if we didn't. We don't. Okay, awesome. So we're constantly updating data in there now. So the thing that you need to keep in mind is that if for whatever reason your data is shorter than the other, you're going to have bad data. So what we can do here is once we get the sheet and the range, what we can do is let's go ahead and just clear out the content. So speaker sheet dot get data range dot clear content. That way when we run it, you'll see that it removes all the data and then replaces it. So hit run, go here. This should flash. It's done. It's already it went too fast. Okay, let's comment this out. Let me just show you what I mean here. So we're gonna go run, execution start, execution ended, and then this data is gone. So it's refreshing it essentially. So let's go ahead and just this, save, run. Wonder if we'll hit an error. No error. Okay, great. So now that we have this working, we can take this information, this whole function actually, and then just replace it. Not replace, but duplicate. So we can say get attendees. This is going to be attendees. We go back to our Airtable, go over to our attendees table, get the list records. It's also, the view is called all attendees with lowercase a. So attendees, and we go over to our Airtable data. Our attendees has name, company, role, email, and phone. So basically everything the same, just that the speakers had more data than before. So we actually don't need to change anything with our code here, except for just changing out speakers for attendees. So say attendees. We'll say attendee info. This is going to turn into attendees. Attendee info. Save that. So we're going to have the import speakers, And now we're also going to have import attendees. So let's actually organize this just a little bit better so that we have the import code all together for each one. For sneakers, get speakers, and then request Airtable. Okay, so in here, now we're going to change this to be attendees. And then instead of speaker sheet, it's going to be attendees sheet. Put that in here. It's going to be get attendees instead. Attendees, attendee sheet, speakers length, and attendees. And then we're going to change this function name to attendees. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and run the attendees. Get attendees, we get that information, and now let's run import attendees. And it runs, and we come here. So now we have speakers, and we also have attendees, all in their own little areas. And the data is unique to each one because we're pulling from those specific Airtable tables. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do now is we're going to pull the data. So we're going to read the data off of those, and you can do whatever you need with it. Let's actually start a new script file. So we're going to call this, let's just call this sheets data, and then we'll rename this one to Airtable API. So within the sheets, let's say get attendees. So what you're going to do here is we're going to do the same thing. We're going to var spreadsheet app dot get active spreadsheet. All right, and then now you're going to get the sheet for the attendees. So you're going to get sheet by name. This is attendees. And then you're going to get the data range. So that's going to be sheet dot get data range. And you're going to do get values from there. Make sure to do an open and close parentheses. And we're going to do console.log just so you can see what the data looks like. So now what we have is we're calling the spreadsheet, getting the sheet name, getting the data range out of that sheet, and then getting the values from it. And then we're going to console log this data so that you can see what it looks like. So hit the save button. Now you have the attendees in the drop down, hit run. And then what we expect to see is all the attendees that we have in our spreadsheet. And if you wanted just the emails for that, so let's say you were going to get the emails. So let's return this data. We'll make a new function here, get attendee emails. And then in here, let's say get attendees. And then for each one, you're going to get the email. So let's say, let's open up a array for the emails and then do a simple for loop for I equals 0, I is less than data.length, I plus plus, data I think it was in the third position. No, it's in, hold up. It's in the second, so that's 0, 1. So the first position, well, the second position, just 1 instead of 0. So we're going to get that, and then emails, we're going to push it into it. So emails.push. Actually, we don't need it to be in a nested array. And now what we'll do is we'll console log emails. And we run this, you should be able to see that we just have all the emails. Run this. And now we have a list of all the emails. And if you were running some type of campaign automation, what you can do here is you can just run this once a day or whatever you need to get the attendee information, grab all the emails, and then iterate through each one of these emails to send an email out using SendGrid or MailChimp or whatever API, or even just the Gmail app if you wanted to. But that's essentially it. If you ran into any issues, feel free to drop a comment in the section below. We're happy to help you. Don't be shy. If you did like this video, make sure to hit that like button. It's the best way to support this channel and help us continue to make content to help you get better, to learn new tricks and hacks to make your daily operations more efficient. Of course, we got lots of videos coming out, so make sure to check out our YouTube channel. We got all sorts of videos out there talking about Google Sheets, Google Apps Scripts, the Shopify API, Airtable, Retool, Data Studio, as well as many others. If you don't see what you're looking for, feel free to shoot an email over to feedback@bootstrapping.tools. Always happy to help, of course, so don't be shy. And because we have so many videos, make sure to hit that subscribe button and also the bell so that you get notified when we release the next video. But I'm a guy called Joe. This is Bootstrapping Tools. Let's build. It's been a pleasure, and we're out.